Hello, how are you? Here is yet another one for you. And in today's video, we shall discuss on what are the risks associated with interviews scheduled toward the end of a fiscal year. So before we discuss those risks, we know that interviews are scheduled numerically following that order from the lowest case numbers towards the highest case numbers. And that means that there are cases that obviously will have to be scheduled towards the end of the fiscal year, while others will be scheduled towards the beginning of a fiscal year. So that one we know. And again, before that, let me just remind you guys, if you are coming from these countries whose embassies are not performing as required, they are not meeting their targets, their monthly targets, I've told you that you need to transfer your case. And we've seen these countries that are performing abnormally, majority of them coming from the region of Africa. Therefore, if you come from these embassies, and for example, we know of the notorious ones like the Accra, Ghana, and the Addis Ababa, among others. If you come from that and your case is medium to lower high, you have to transfer your case if at all you want to save your case. We are currently, for Africa region, on the cutoff number 52,000 from the previous visa bulletin. So if you are above this 52,000, you need to take action if you come from those poorly performing countries and transfer your case to a better embassy. But you should know this as well, that if your embassy is performing well, even if you try to transfer, you are going to change nothing because you are safe in your embassy if it is performing well. If you were to get scheduled for an interview, you will. But if you are not, even if you transfer, you will not get an interview scheduled if your embassy is excellently performing. So having said that, let's come back to today's topic. What are these risks, first of all, associated with those interviews that by default will be scheduled towards the end of the fiscal year? So if your case number will be scheduled for an interview towards the end of the fiscal year, and that is between July, August, and September, those 3 months. Now, you should know that the general process of diversity visa gets slower towards the end of a fiscal year. So you might find out that even if you are to be scheduled during those months, you might end up not being scheduled. And that is unfortunate. And this is because the process gets slower and slower as we are heading towards the end of the fiscal year. And you will notice that from the historical data that in the month of September, there are very few cases scheduled, very few for majority of the embassies. And there is a reason for that. Fewer interviews have to be scheduled in the last month because the last month for majority of the embassies is meant for the 221G visa refusals. So those people under the 221G visa refusal will get their cases, or majority of their cases, being processed in the last month, that is the month of September. Therefore, the cases that would have been scheduled for the month of September will have to be put aside for this process of going through the 221G visa refusals. The second risk that face the individuals that get scheduled in the last months. So if your interview gets scheduled in the last months, you have this risk that in case you are unfortunate and you are put into the 221G visa refusal, then you have very limited time. And it is limited because remember that the 221G visa refusal processing time vary greatly. Some take 2 weeks, 1 week, 2 months, 1 month, even up to 6 months. We've seen others going that far. And if you are towards the end of the fiscal year, you know what that means, that time will run out on you. So you have to be very cautious in terms of getting prepared if your interview is scheduled towards the end of the fiscal year. Avoid being placed into 221G if at all you can. I know people coming from certain countries that are prone to terrorism issues, like for example, the country of Iran. I know those people from there, they are put to 221G for further background check, and that is normal. And for those countries, if you are towards the end of the fiscal year, you can't control that. But if you come from any other country without any security issue, then avoid getting into 221G visa refusal, because in those last months you don't have enough time. And then still on the same note, why should you prevent yourself from landing into the 221G visa refusal? It's because if you land in there, you might find out that there are other 221G visa refusals in your embassy. And where your 221G visa refusal will be placed, you might find that there might be other 221Gs ahead of you. And therefore, before they come to your case, the 221G, then you'll find out that time might have ran on you. So the backlog of 221G visa refusal might delay your 221G visa refusal in case you get one. Therefore, what should you do? Avoid getting into that if your interview is towards the end of the fiscal year. Of course, even if it is towards the beginning of the fiscal year, you need to avoid that. But more specifically for those in the last months. Now, let's come to the second major issue. The second major risk that would face these people that might be scheduled towards the end of the fiscal year is that you might never attend your interview. I mean, your interview might be cancelled. So you might have received the 2NL, but later on your interview get cancelled. And we experienced this in the last DV Lottery 2023. That the visas got exhausted before the interviews that were scheduled beyond September 6th. So all those interviews that were scheduled beyond September 6th, they had to be cancelled. And it was a painful feeling. It was a painful experience. Imagine you have your 2NL. You've already attended your medical examination with this hype that you are going for your interview. And then all of a sudden, your interview gets cancelled. You see? So those people that would have their interviews scheduled towards the last month of the year, that is September, they face this risk. If the visas get exhausted, their interviews might be cancelled. I hope you get the point. So those are just some few risks that might face the interviews scheduled or that would have been scheduled towards the end of the fiscal year. So thank you guys for watching this video. I know you've gained one or two things, and therefore don't forget to leave a like before you finish watching this video. And if you're new, please don't forget to subscribe. Even if you are there and you've been watching these videos and you're not yet a subscriber, please consider subscribing. And also share the video, and let's meet in the next one.